joining us, Ahmed Fattouh, spokesperson for the Fatah movement. And we move on to China and Taiwan. China has just said that they are willing to engage in dialogue with Taiwan, but only under the One China principle, which denies the island's sovereignty. A spokesperson for Beijing's Taiwan Affairs office said discussions would be limited to topics promoting what it called reunification of the motherland. The comments followed Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te marked 1 year in office with a renewed call for peace and dialogue with China, while vowing to continue strengthening Taiwan's defenses. Lai said peace is priceless and war has no winners, but warned that Taiwan cannot afford dreams nor illusions. He reiterated that true peace must be backed by deterrence, insisting that preparing for war is the best way to prevent one. His comments came as Taiwan's military detected 6 Chinese warplanes, 8 Navy vessels, and 3 official ships near the island, part of what officials describe as a record pace of military activity from Beijing. All 6 aircraft reportedly crossed the median line of the Taiwan Strait. Beijing, however, dismissed Lai's overture, condemning his stance as separatist and claiming Taiwan's push for independence is doomed to fail. The sharp rebuke underscores the deep divide that continues to fuel tensions across the Taiwan Strait, despite rising calls internationally for restraint and dialogue. As regional tensions continue, Lai's balancing act, seeking dialogue while boosting defenses, will remain under intense scrutiny. We have Dr. Roger Liu, Senior Fellow at Flame University, live from Taiwan, joining us. Thank you for joining us, Doctor. China has expressed a willingness to engage in dialogue with Taiwan, but only under the One China principle. How does this stand affect the prospects for meaningful discussions between the two sides?
Thank you for having me. I'm now in Taiwan, so I can feel this the situation in the first place. I would like to say that, well, this actually has been, although the two sides have expressed the intention to talk, however, Lai and CCP, or the Chinese Communist Party, has failed to establish a mutual trust between each other since the first place, since Lai has inaugurated last year. So I think any of this kind of gesture, although they are designed to be friendly to each other, are not going anywhere, no matter what is being said. The only audience is one, the United States, because Donald Trump has actually expressed to the two sides apparently that he and the United States administration like to see that the two sides can promote peace rather than saber-rattling to war. So the both sides actually has been trying to impress the United States, so they make gestures like that. But as you can say, and as you have indicated, the military gestures launched by China has never been stopped for the past few years. They try to threaten Taiwan by sending out different vessels, different aircraft fighters to surround Taiwan, to send out different threatening gestures to Taiwan that, well, unification by force actually is the only way that they're going to do. And there are a lot of warnings being set up or sent out by our counterparts from different armed forces, including the one in the US and the UK and others, saying that China actually has been seriously trying to attempt to take over Taiwan by the year of 2027. So that's actually constitute the background behind President Lai's speech that deterrence has to be there if China and Taiwan are going to talk.
And Beijing has dismissed President Lai's call for peace, labeling his stance as separatist. How do you view China's rejection of dialogue on Taiwan's terms, and what might this mean for future interactions between the two nations?
Well, Beijing has dismissed President Lai in the first place. Compared with his predecessors, President Lai has been defined by Beijing in the first place as a staunch separatist for Taiwan independence. So I think any intention from the Beijing side to respond or to interact with him can be interpreted as a friendly gesture. Well, I think it is much better than not talking, but it's very hard for both sides or the international allies of either Taiwan or China to interpret this as a very immediate exchange between Taiwan and China. So, well, for this, for the real talk to happen, I don't think it is going to happen really soon. But the key thing is actually to diffuse the tensions from escalating to a further worse scenario.
And Dr. Liu, President Lai has emphasized the need for deterrence while calling for peace. Do you believe this balancing act of strengthening Taiwan's defense while seeking dialogue can realistically prevent further escalation?
I think that will work because Beijing actually has been trying by manipulating the collaborators inside of this island, plus their military gestures to further threaten or to force Taiwan to accept its political options, including the unification with Beijing, or to sign a peaceful deal. The so-called peaceful deal actually is just like what they have signed with Tibet several decades before. They just want to occupy Taiwan without, without honoring these promises. So people in Taiwan are very cautious about that. So we believe that the further deterrence is very important because now the balance of military power between Taiwan and China has been broken after China has been growing up their military muscle for the past few decades. So now what we are worrying about here in Taiwan is that they are going to launch sudden military options or operations to scare Taiwan or to horrify Taiwan and to call Taiwan in a surprise so that, well, that there will be some very sudden options that they will force Taiwan to accept something that Taiwanese people and the government don't want.
And given the current geopolitical tensions with both sides taking hardline positions, do you see any viable pathways for de-escalation, or are we headed for more prolonged standoff?
I think the prolonged standoff will be there, but the key issue over here is that the two sides will have to be very careful about not to escalate it more to be a skirmish, even worse, a local military conflict between the two sides. Well, since the U.S. has been warned Taiwan to be careful about the possible full invasion by the year of 2027, what Taiwan has worried here is that China will use its Coast Guard, which they define as maritime police, to kind of perform something called the quarantine of Taiwan. Quarantine is like a quasi blockade. What differs quarantine from blockade is that quarantine actually can be viewed and interpreted by Beijing as a law enforcement action rather than a blockade, which is defined in international law as a gesture of war declaring. So by doing that, actually, Beijing, by performing a quarantine, Beijing will be able to suffocate Taiwan by stemming all the important supplies of energy, oil, and the most important, the semiconductors. And that by doing that, Beijing will be successfully able to disrupt the world semiconductor supply. And Beijing is going to try to use that to force other countries, including the Western allies of Taiwan, to accept Beijing's proposal.
Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Roger Liu, Senior Fellow at Flame University. Well, that's all we have time for. We will continue to bring more news updates from around the world.